Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the RAPZ and Restaurant Tax Committee. And just want to thank all of our committee members for gathering again today. I was telling a couple of you, I think we might have to double your pay. And if you've done the math, 2 times 0 is still 0. So we really appreciate your service to start with, and especially this year getting together again. And I remember how hard it was to find a date for us to meet initially, and somehow we were able to find a date much easier this time. So thank you all for being flexible with your schedules and making sure we could be here. I think there might be some who need to leave earlier than what we're scheduled for. We did schedule this for 2 hours, but by no means do we have to use that full 2 hours. If we're done in less than an hour, I don't think any of us will complain. And we do have a number of things to review today. So I'll just go through briefly kind of where we are and recap maybe what happened last time. We had a database error last time. Alma was putting the numbers into the database, and we saw the chart up on the screen, and we thought we had spent more money than we actually did, and finished our recommendation, sent it to the council, but as you've heard, Alma later realized the error and realized that we had close to $1 million, around $1 million still available to spend. So with that said, there were some additional recommendations that were made before the last council meeting a week ago, and those were shared with the council, and then some council members had some additional recommendations, and what the council ultimately asked was that we reconvene and look at everything over again, including the ideas that had come from this committee and ideas that had come from council members and other clarifying information or requests that had come from some of the grant requesters. So that's what we have before us today, is the task to take another look at what other monies we would like to spend, and give an updated recommendation to the council. Based on the county code, the council is supposed to approve the RAPZ and restaurant tax allocations by their second meeting in May, which will be next Tuesday. And we should be able to get this done today and over to them. So with that being said, Alma has compiled some of that information for us, and you'll see in front of you a couple of different documents. One is kind of a summary document that says excerpts from emails for additional requests. So I don't know if this is every email. I went through mine and tried to send him the ones I had, and there were some that got sent him directly, but there may be others. So if any of you have other emails or requests that or that you're aware of that are not on this list, then we can still talk about those today. So that's what that document is. He basically just took an excerpt or a bullet point, a sentence from each of those, and some of them are duplicates of each other as well. For example, 1 and 2 are about the same project in Providence, and then 4 and 5 are about the same request. So we'll go through those in a minute, and then you have 2 spreadsheets that are in the documents that he gave you. One of them says at the top, RAPZ and Restaurant Program recommended additional funding, Bruce Cook. So that's from committee member Bruce Cook, who put that together prior to the last council meeting. And then the other one says proposed RAPZ award adjustments, and that one is from council member Carl Ward. They look pretty similar, and I think Alma did make some slight adjustments to them to put them in the same order.
I did put them in the same order, yes.
They weren't necessarily in the same order as each other, so he thought that might help us to go through and compare, because they have a lot of duplicates of similar projects. And then behind that in your stack, you will see the another document that has excerpts of the full text of the emails that were sent. And so what Alma did is he just copied the text from the emails and put them in here. So for example, if you saw the first one on the excerpts page that was on top, about referencing an email from Councilmember Buse or an email from Mayor Alder, you can go into this and you can read what they actually said if you would like more details about that email. And then behind that in the stack, you will see our minutes from our last meeting, as well as behind the minutes, stapled to that, the list of our recommendations that we initially gave to the council. So with that being said, are there any questions about any of that information? Any questions about the task that's before us today, or anything else you wanted to add, Alma?
No, you covered it. Thanks.
Okay. So at that point, then let's go ahead and dive into these. As we did last time, Alma will be putting the numbers into the spreadsheet as we go. And just to clarify, I guess I would just want to clarify and add a couple more pieces of information. Some of these projects are eligible for restaurant tax funding, and some of them are eligible for RAPZ funding. And Alma predetermined the eligibility in the spreadsheet and already has them allocated to the category. There are some that would qualify for both potentially, but Alma has predetermined that. And with that being said, there was some discussion at the council meeting, and I've had discussions with a few other people. Wendy Hassan reached out to me as well from the Cache Valley Center for the Arts, gave me some background information, and Senator Hilliard attended our last council meeting last week and spoke about these revenues. And so I just wanted to share some of that information, and council members, if you'd like to chime in and add anything as well, that would be great. But there was some discussion about the overall purpose of these funds. And there are two different taxes that we are distributing revenue from today, the restaurant and the RAPZ tax. The restaurant tax, Senator Hilliard gave a little bit of history about that, and I thought it was pretty interesting because he talked about how the restaurant industry was actually against it and pushed back against it. And one of the compromises that was made with that was the agreement that the funds from the restaurant tax would be used to bring more people here who would go to restaurants ultimately, but that it would be used for tourism. And if you look in our county code about that particular tax, the restaurant tax, our county code doesn't say a lot about it, but what it does say is restaurant tax emphasis will be given to supporting tourism. Funds from the restaurant tax can be used either for capital projects or maintenance expenses, and multi-year commitments will be considered. So that's what the code says about the restaurant tax, but his point was that, and Councilmember Ward made this point as well, that the intent was to reinvest that money into our economy in ways that would generate even more restaurant tax, as well as other economic stimulation. Were you going to say something?
Rate?
What's the rate for the restaurant tax? Was that 1%? I can't remember. 1%, yes. So it's a 1% restaurant tax. And then the RAPZ tax is different because it's a 1/10 of 1% sales tax, and that one's on all sales tax in the county. So all purchases that happen in every city in the county as well as the unincorporated area, 1/10 of 1% of all of those gets put into the RAPZ tax. So the intent of the restaurant tax is primarily tourism promotion, bringing people here so they will spend money in restaurants, spend money in hotels, spend money on all kinds of other things that will generate a RAPZ tax as well. And then the intent of the RAPZ tax is recreation, arts, parks, and zoo, with the intent that 40% be used for cultural uses, that 50% be spent for recreational uses, and that 10% be spent for the zoo. And
Up to 10%.
well, this is what it says in the code. So the code says, RAPZ zoological facilities allocate 10% after administrative costs to the Willow Park Zoo. So it doesn't say up to, but it doesn't necessarily say that it has to be a full 10% either, which I think is supported by what it says after that. So it says, based on an acceptable proposal submitted each year, so they have to actually submit and ask for it each year and meet the deadlines and requirements. And then it says the percentage will be reviewed each year, which I don't know what that means. But then the next sentence says, if less than 10%, the additional funds may be allocated to Parks and Rec. So it does imply that it could be less than 10%. It doesn't say it can't be more. It doesn't say it has to be at least that much. But it does imply that it could be less. And it says it will be reviewed each year. But the initial percentages are 50% for recreation, 40% for cultural and botanical, and 10% for zoo. So those numbers are something that we should review on a regular basis. And Alma, do you have those percentages in the spreadsheet? Can you show us based on our current or what we end up with today where we stand with those?
They're not percentages per se in the spreadsheet, but if you'll notice, I've already divided them. And the way the process works is when the applications are received, we review them for completeness, and then we put them in an Access database. And the Access database determines where they fall, whether they're in restaurant, RAPZ, or whether they could qualify for both. And then I have put them into the different categories. So there on the left is the restaurant column. So all of those applications fall under restaurant. Then the others over there would be RAPZ, and then it's divided out. And then the zoo has its own, its own category. So I've already put them into the different categories. I'm not going to be moving them around. What I will do is I will go in and edit, and if you do an additional amount, I'll put in that additional amount, and then we'll have the final or the end result. If I look over here, so you know exactly what we're looking at, it's just a little over 1 million. So right there, the 1,088,130 is the total
Available?
available, correct.
Okay.
Question.
Yes, sir.
When you read from the code there was a paragraph that says the percentages need to be looked at. What, that kind of was right in the middle of something that referred to zoos and then something below referred to zoos. Is that percentage referred to the amount allocated to zoos, or is that percentage the amount allocated between the 54 and 10?
Just to zoo. So I'll read it again. This is under section D, RAPZ zoological facilities. Then section number 1 under section D says, allocate 10% after administrative costs to the Willow Park Zoo based on an acceptable proposal submitted each year. The second sentence says, the percentage will be reviewed each year. And the third sentence says, if less than 10%, the additional funds may be allocated to Parks and Recreation. So whatever is not used for zoo.
That's, I think, our interpretation, that's where we got the interpretation. About two 10%, is because that percentage can be adjusted.
Yeah, so it says if it's less than 10%, that whatever's left over would go into that 50% category where 50% had gone to recreation parks. It doesn't say if it's more than 10%, which one that should come out of, if it should come out of recreation. It doesn't say, but it doesn't say you can't go over. It doesn't say it has to be that. It just says it'll be reviewed each year.
Right.
So there's a lot of flexibility.
The way the statute's written, I think the cap is 10%. The cap is 10%, and we can choose to allocate less.
That's what it's always been.
And if it is less, then the difference
Yeah.
goes to parks.
Yeah,
And I
I
think that's the cap of 10.
It could definitely be interpreted that each of these is a cap that you can't go over. It doesn't specifically say that, but they all add up to 100, and you can't have more than 100%. So,
David,
Government sure tries to.
can I ask, I don't think this body would have, we could review and make a recommendation about percentages, but this body wouldn't have any authority to change those percentages, I presume.
well, and in fact, this was approved by the voters,
So even the county council may not have authority to,
No, this, authority, no, but suggestions, yes. And then the governing body, which is the county council,
could make alterations
up
to.
to 10%,
those
these
codes.
kind of things, they can make some changes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
yeah, it's not the clearest language, and probably we should have clarified it before the voters reauthorized it last November, but we have 10 years to figure out what we want to say next time to make it clear.
Just got redone.
Yeah, so this was just reauthorized in November for another 10-year period, which will be the third decade of this program. So, so with all of that background being said, I just wanted to share that, that additional information about the desire for all of us to be reminded that the restaurant tax should be used for things that stimulate more restaurant tax and more sales tax through tourism. And then the RAPZ has its percentages according to which we should allocate. Any other questions about our background, our purpose today, or the projects that we should now undertake? Okay.
Thanks for the review. Appreciate
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for your help, and thanks for specifically your recommendations. I think that was very helpful. So at this point, let's dive into these recommendations. And are these all of the requests that we have?
Yeah, the requests, the email requests are the only ones that we had received. Thank you. And then there was the suggestions from Councilmember Ward, as well as Bruce Cook, member of the committee, or of the board.
Okay,
And that's in the two spreadsheets.
okay.
We also have, I suggested another 25 for Hiram City where we was giving Providence and Smithfield when we went through.
Okay, let's make sure we talk about that too. So I thought one, so you said Hiram City, another 25 is what you were recommending?
Yes.
And then was there a second one after that you just
it. Is
said?
that in addition to the 25 I recommended?
For Hiram City?
Yes.
You didn't have anything down for
Yeah, I
Hiram City
did.
originally?
This
Or did
is
you
Carl
change it?
Ward's. This is Carl Ward's.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, Carl Ward didn't, but.
Oh, yeah, yeah, you have that.
25.
I have
Oh, there is
25
another one?
already.
Yeah.
So this is
Okay,
suggested
everybody,
second.
does everyone have that? Okay.
Additional request that just came in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that Hiram City one is on Bruce's. So what I thought might be a good starting point for us,
Excuse me, so sorry.
So clarification though, on that Hiram on the suggested, so is it 25 or 50? Because one of you are recommending 25 and the other 25? So are we doing 50 total or
just,
25?
it's just 25.
Just
Bruce
25.
recommends 25, and Reed also had recommended 25, so I'm not saying additional.
Okay, awesome.
They hadn't talked to each other, so apparently it's the same 25.
Okay, awesome.
So my thought was that it might be easiest, and we could probably knock out a lot of these if we went through these two spreadsheets together, because there is a lot of crossover between them. And then we also have a number of individual ones that we got on emails, which we could, some of these are actually pretty simple. And actually, how many of these emails are on these lists as well? I think several of them might be.
On the excerpt from the emails, I only put the ones that requested additional amounts.
Okay.
So there may be more emails, but, you know, if you run across something, if I missed it, because a lot of them just came in this morning.
Okay.
I just handed out the one
So the,
Why don't we first consider, Bruce, let's go through your list.
Yeah, yeah.
Because,
that's-
as part of the committee here.
Okay.
Go through your list first,
Let me,
and then we go to
I don't like to go through this like there was additional money found.
Right.
And all of a sudden, everybody's upping their request.
Yeah.
Okay? Because that's not what happened. Okay?
exactly.
Second of all, we don't need to spend all of our money, and specifically, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about the airport, which I'm unwilling to recommend that we allocate this year, but we could have a pretty big request in future years. Therefore, I would like to keep a larger amount in reserve than we have in the past, so if they come up with a suggestion, or with additional funding, and they need matching, we're prepared to meet it. I don't want to meet it this year, I don't want to give it to them this year, because
Is a
then
week,
we're gonna have to cut away from people in future years, okay? So anyway, I suggested the American West Heritage Center, the initial award was 90. I suggested that we fund the entire thing, give them additional $15,000.
Okay, so if you look at Carl's spreadsheet, Carl recommended the same thing, that an additional 15,000 be awarded to American West Heritage Center. What are the committee's thoughts about that?
so moved.
This application scored really well. I'll second that. And I do want to take scoring into account here as well as we go through this,
And-
because we don't want those scores to just
And we
drop
did, when, on the first round that we went through all that, we really did, so.
Okay, is there anyone who is opposed to that additional recommendation? Okay, seeing none, we will have that additional 15,000 added to the recommendation. The next one is Cache Valley Civic Ballet.
The Civic Ballet, but this is the floor replacement and not the ballet proper.
Oh, right.
And I suggested we give them another 3,400, take them up to 10,400. They need to still come up with 4,000 of their own. And I felt good about helping the Whittier Center.
Okay, and then on Carl's, he also listed the ballet, however, this was the other grant application from the ballet. If you look at the line number,
Yeah, it's a
number
different-
7 and number 8 are the two. Bruce has application number 8, and Carl has application number 7. So Carl recommended an additional 10,000 for the ballet. About those two recommendations. Let's talk about the ballet, both of those at the same time.
I like the floor project because it's capacity building, rather than, like, operational, they may, if they scale operations such that they have to come back and ask us for larger amounts of money every year, then it puts a different burden on the RAPZ tax in the future than if we do capacity building for this one shot. I'd be willing to kick it up even a little higher than that and leave them perhaps only with 2,000 to raise, but.
On 8.
On the floor?
On 8, yeah.
I think, going back to 7, based on the number of people that they're serving, I felt comfortable with the 10 that we gave them, and I would not recommend giving an additional 10. That council,
How do you feel about going a little bit higher on 8?
that's fine.
I am in the same boat. I think that's big picture stuff. And everybody, half the people on this list use it.
I'd hate to see 3/4 of the floor done and the other quarter left.
Well, didn't they make quite a bit of money, I thought, last year when we went to 1099? I say, didn't they make quite a bit of money?
I don't remember the
No.
1099.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so their initial request for the floor replacement was 14,400. We initially recommended 7,000, and Bruce's recommendation was 10,400, but I've heard a couple of people say they'd be willing to go higher than that. Is there a specific number that we would like to consider?
But a round number of 5,500 additional, so that'd be
Oh,
7 plus the 55, rather,
500.
you were at 3,400. Let's just go to
I think that's
5,500.
55.
I think that's great.
12,500 is what that would be for their $14,400 request. 12,500 would be the recommended award.
Okay.
Is there any opposition to that? Okay, hearing none, that will be our recommendation there.
So that's number 8, an additional.
Then,
12,500.
on the other one, number 7, does the committee desire to recommend anything further for application number 7 for the ballet?
I think we just spent it.
Okay,
I think we keep them.
okay, so we gave them a little extra for their capital project.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
So what was the final?
$12,500 for the flooring project number 8.
And number 7 didn't change.
And number 7, our recommendation has not changed.
Okay.
Okay, the next one on Bruce's list is Cache Valley Center for the Arts, and there are 2 projects he has listed recommended changes for, number 24 and number 25.
I recommend fully funding both of those projects. So we went from, they requested 120 on 24. The initial was 100. I recommend an additional 20 to give them 120.
I second both of those.
Yeah.
And, okay,
Take 50, and instead of 40, take it to 50 on.
the 40 to take it to 50.
Okay, so an additional 30,000 combined, 20,000 on the first one and 10,000 on the second one.
Full funding in on both them.
Okay, any other thoughts? If not, anyone opposed to that? Okay, so we will do that, and then, I don't think Carl had that one listed on his, so.
So just to recap, I need to make sure we get this. So 24 is an additional
20.
20.
For a total of 120,000, and then 25 is an additional 10,000 for a total of 50,000.
Okay.
Okay.
The three theater companies, we try to treat them based upon their productions, we try to treat them equally, and I think I suggested an additional 5 for each of the theater companies. 5 for number 34, 5 for number 43, and 5 for number 52.
Okay, an additional 5,000 for each of those, and Carl recommended on his an additional 10,000 for Four Seasons, and Music Theater West an additional 2,000, and what was the third one? Was Unicorn the other one?
Music theater, no.
Music Theater West.
Cash Regional.
Oh, Cash Regional.
He didn't.
Carl did not have an additional recommendation for that. Okay, so the recommendation then, let's just say the numbers again. Number 34, number 52, and number 43
Correct.
are the 3 projects that Bruce is recommending. We allocate an additional 5,000 above and beyond our initial recommendation. So the initial recommendation for Four Seasons was $20,000 out of their $47,000 request. That would take the recommendation to $25,000 for them. On number 43 for Cache Regional Theater, they requested $49,000. We initially said $25,000. This would bring theirs to $30,000. And then number 52, Music Theater West, they requested $38,000. We initially proposed $30,000. This would bring it to $35,000. Are there any thoughts about those 3?
I'm in favor of that.
Okay. Any other thoughts about those 3?
I do.
Okay. Is anyone in opposition to those? Okay, hearing none, those will be the recommendations. 25,000 for Four Seasons, and 30,000 for Cache Regional, and 35,000 for Music Theater West.
And that was an additional 5,000 to each one.
Additional 5,000 for each of those. 5,000 in addition to our original recommendation. Okay, and let's see, I'm just crossing out the ones on Carl's that we've already addressed, so that when we finish this one, we can be a little bit ahead. Okay, the next one on Bruce's list is Hiram City.
In the cities, you kind of also treat them alike.
Correct.
Always, so I think that would be good, dispersing some of those extra funds.
Hiram, Millville,
Yep.
Paradise, Providence, Smithfield
Smithfield.
City.
Okay, so Bruce's recommendation for Hiram is an additional, let's do each one of these individually. So Hiram, the recommendation, original request was $250,000. We initially recommended $175,000. And Bruce's recommendation is that we give them an additional 25,000, bringing them up to 200,000 total. Any thoughts on that one?
I'm agreeable to that.
Yep. I am too.
Okay, anyone in opposition to that recommendation? Okay, hearing none, that'll be our recommendation for Hiram City, 200,000 total, so an addition, 25,000 more than our initial recommendation. And then, did we want to talk about all of the cities right now? Just,
Yeah, go ahead and do.
That's fine.
Millville and.
the next one was Millville, number 50. Tennis court, they asked for 23. We didn't originally recommend anything for them, but Bruce's recommendation now is 23.
They
did have another plan.
Yeah, we
Oh,
did number 1.
Yeah, on this project, yeah. So on project 50, tennis court lighting, we initially did not recommend anything. But Bruce is recommending that we fully fund that project to $23,144. Everybody okay with that?
We gave them 175 on the other project.
The other project.
So they'd be almost 200,000.
Yeah.
Okay, any opposition to that?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, that'll be our recommendation for Millville City, project number 50, $23,144. And then,
Good.
since we're talking about cities, let's talk about Paradise's project number 58. Parks, 59,000 was their initial request. 50,000 was our initial recommendation, and Bruce recommends we just add the other 9,000 to fully fund that. Everybody
I'm good with
okay?
that.
That's okay.
What number was that?
58.
58.
58?
Okay, so the recommendation for 58 then is $59,000 to fully fund their request. And then the next one is Providence City Skate Park. They initially asked for 300,000. We initially recommended half of that, 150,000. Bruce recommends an additional 25,000, which would bring them to 175,000. And this is one that we also got an email from Councilmember Buse asking that we bump it to 200,000, and Mayor Alder asked the same. So that would be an additional 50,000 from our initial recommendation. If we followed the request of Councilmember Buse and Mayor Alder, that would bring them from 150 to 200,000 of their initial $300,000 request. Mayor Alder did reach out to me too, and she said that they felt like they could come up with the additional 100,000 in addition to all of the other money they were already matching on this project. Thoughts on that one?
I like that idea simply because we're doing about 200 for Hiram in the revised thing, and you know, similarly-ish sized cities, a similar amount of money makes sense to me, but I'm
I like that they didn't ask for much. I mean, they just wanted to get to that.
Yeah, just a little bit more.
Yeah, they're not asking for the full 300 either.
Just enough to get them over the threshold? Okay.
I would be okay.
I just don't like skate parks.
Have you tried one? You can't, no, I can tell you, try it.
Skateboarding is not a crime. Okay,
I'll go with it.
okay.
I'm just being honest, I don't like skate parks.
A lot of kids use those with scooters and a lot of different kinds of things besides the skateboards as well, so.
Well, that didn't prove anything.
Sorry, I didn't know that.
But that's,
Okay.
no, there's something
Yeah.
for everybody. There has to be something for everybody, and that's important, so.
Exactly. Okay, so, so the recommendation is 200,000 for Providence City. Is there any opposition to that? Okay, hearing none, that will be our recommendation
I'll go with that.
on project number 59, Providence City Skate Park, $200,000. Smithfield City,
I hate to send the message that you can call and get more.
It's hard, right? Now,
this was a unique year. It was because we need to make sure people know in the future. We did that because of a computer miscalculation. However, some people have had a pattern of doing that in the past. Okay, so project number 64 and 66 are Smithfield City. The first is project number 64, Central Park. $264,697 was their initial request. Our initial recommendation was $175,000. Bruce recommended we bump that to $200,000. And then they had a second project, number 66, where that's the museum. Well, is
we
that?
did that one already. Oh, the 66, the one that we didn't fund?
That's the museum. Our initial recommendation was 30,000 of their $103,000 request.
All the way through.
And then,
Shoot that one pretty close to 50% then funded.
yeah. So Bruce's recommendation is to bump it up to 50,000. So again, 200,000 to the city, which is the same amount we just decided to give to, basically the same amount, yeah, that we gave to Hiram and Providence. So let's talk about that one. Central Park, everybody okay with bumping that to 200,000?
I am.
Yes.
I am.
So that'll be our recommendation on number 64, $200,000 for Central Park. And then 66, Bruce's recommendation is to take it to 50. What are your thoughts on 50,000 for the museum?
I like it. Anything that helps history, historical
Say that
stuff
shoots
is
at
good
about
for me.
50%, if they can, they'll probably be coming back for the other 50% next year, but
Yeah.
My only struggle is that this is their number 3, and we've already gone over what the other ones have asked, you know, like, in that spirit of keeping them as semi-equal as we can.
I can't remember, was this actually the city asking, or is it a historical organization or somebody else doing this?
I think it's through the city, but there's,
But it was a historical.
there's a historical committee or something.
It's still a
like
city,
that.
official city
Still.
project,
Yeah.
city building, okay.
But Smithfield's also a little bigger population-wise than these.
That's true.
Than Hiram and Nibley. So I'm open to doing something a little more. And like Dave said, they've been coming to us for $100,000 asks every year for a few years on this, and RAPS has given them 10, 15, 20, and maybe this can be an amount that jump starts it and helps them get somewhere to where they can have some more deliverables.
I'm just glad that we have people even thinking and would like to actually do something to document something for the next generation. You know, we don't have enough of that happening.
Okay, so is there any opposition to giving the museum 50,000? Okay, so that will be our recommendation then, 50,000 on project 66, Smithfield City Museum. That brings us to, let's go back up to Logan Downtown
A
Alliance.
second. So 66, number 66, an additional 20,000.
Additional 20,000 for a total of 50,000.
Okay.
Okay, so that's all of the city ones on this list, so let's bump back up. We skipped Logan Downtown Alliance, and then I think we're caught up. Do that. So let's bump back up to project number 45, Logan Downtown Alliance, Top of Utah Marathon. They initially requested $15,000. We initially recommended $10,000, and Bruce recommended we give them the extra 5 to give them a total of $15,000 as they requested.
I would do that.
Okay, seeing head nods. Any opposition to that?
That's reasonable.
Okay, so we will make our recommendation 15,000 for the Logan Downtown Alliance, project number 45. And then dropping back down to project number 70 on this list, Unicorn Theater. They asked for $15,000. We originally recommended $7,500, and Bruce has recommended an additional $2,500 to bring it to $10,000.
I'm good with that. You bet.
Everybody okay with
Carl
that?
had on his
Sounds
too.
good.
Okay, sounds good. So $10,000 will be our recommendation for project number 70, Unicorn Theater. Utah Festival Opera, and this one, I think Carl had on his, actually, oh, you know what? Carl had the same recommendation for Unicorn Theater, so I'm going to cross that one out on his list. And then he had Top of Utah Marathon, so I'll cross that one out because we fully funded that. So he did have Utah Festival Opera on his. So Bruce's recommendation for Utah Festival Opera was that we give them an extra $50,000. They initially asked for $550,000. We initially recommended $400,000. Bruce's recommendation is to give them an extra $50,000 to bring them up to $450,000, and that is Carl's, Councilmember Ward's recommendation as well.
Okay.
Everybody okay with an extra 50,000?
Yes.
Okay, I see lots of head nods, so we'll do an extra 50,000 for Utah Festival Opera. 2023 operational support number 72, and then while we're talking about Utah Festival Opera, project number 73 is on Carl's list. This was Utah Festival Opera marketing. They initially asked for $175,000. We initially recommended 50, and Carl is recommending we double that and give them another 50 for a total of 100,000 out of their $175,000 request. Thoughts on that?
So,
Well, that's a lot of advertising.
that's a lot of advertising, but one of my concerns is that why put money into the one if we can't get anybody here? Like, if, I don't know what they need, I don't understand all of the details for the marketing, but there is something to be said for, if we're gonna invest in the one, we almost need to invest on the other, because if nobody comes, then it's a wasted investment, so.
But in prior years, they've done very well with their advertising, even though we haven't.
What was that?
I say in prior years, they've done quite well, I think, with their advertising,
Have they?
with
Yes.
what the amounts that we have given them.
What do you mean? You mean they've gotten plenty of people here with the amount we've gotten them?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
The past.
So,
But the price is going up with advertising like everything else.
I would agree with Chris completely saying an extra 20,000, an extra 50,000 feels like a lot to me. And also thinking of the fact that one of the practices, I'm a short timer on this committee, but one thing I feel like I've observed is that we'll often ask, where did we fund them last year? And when we come back next year, you know, I don't want to make too much of an operational commitment this year that we wouldn't be likely to be able to support on an ongoing basis if they have applied and had an equally meritorious
I
application.
think that's a valid point.
That's a pretty valid point.
so if we think back to what we talked about, or what I recapped at the beginning of the meeting about the uses of these funds to essentially invest them into things that will generate more tax revenue. We think about the opera, that's what they're talking about doing with this money, is advertising outside of our valley to bring people here, to get people to come here. I asked them how many of their attendees came from outside of the area, and they told me it's about 60%, maybe a little higher than 60% of their attendees who come from outside of our county. They told me also that they had an economic analysis done a few years ago that showed 35 million to 45 million in economic activity as a result of what they're doing, which seems very high to me, but it's surely somewhere in the millions of what they're doing.
Walk through this with me a little bit. I got the email from Julie Hollist. She says we've got about 800 people coming from Arizona. So assume you have 800 people coming from Arizona, and let's assume that they spend $1,000 a piece a month in sales taxable disbursements. So if you've got 800 people, $1,000 a month, that's $1.6 million a month. 3 months would be $4.8 million in sales taxable sales over the 3 months that they're here.
I think we're talking about two separate.
Well,
Are we?
those are,
Overlapping.
They're related.
that's
Okay.
one,
I'm just making sure I'm on the
yeah,
stage.
the summer citizens are one component of the attendees of the opera, and so you're
They
taking,
contend that
they're a big
the
piece.
main reason they come here is,
Yeah,
so $4.8 million, and the restaurant tax is, or the 1%, we have 1%, so $48,000 in RAPZ tax. Assuming those very generous, assuming the restaurant tax, assuming very generous assumptions. So $48,000 that comes back in the form of a RAPZ tax.
from just the summer citizens.
But from restaurant, now RAPZ is 1/10.
That-
Now, are they buying anything?
Yes,
except for
I'm
that?
saying, we're assuming
Buying a car.
$1,000 a month in sales taxable
Yeah.
disbursements. I wonder, certainly they pay rents and there are other things included there, but I think when they tell us how much they're generating, I think that's inflated.
So, yeah, I think it's a high number, but you were just talking about 800 people. and they sell 35 to 40,000 tickets, is what they told me.
Is that a true statement? Okay.
So it's a lot of tickets. That's 800 people, and I'm sure those 40,000 are duplicated attendees.
Yes.
It's not 40,000 unique attendees for 40,000 tickets. So yeah, I would agree with you that it's probably somewhere in between that and 45 million. That's a really big number, that economic analysis. But there are multiplying factors involved. I'm not an economist, but
Yeah, but the other thing is that those 800 people that are coming, they don't come strictly for the opera. They've been coming a long, long, long time. And it's the snowbirds that are coming up here
Right.
that has, I think, more of an impact than the opera. Because they've done it in the past. They've come up here for the environment compared to where they're at.
So going back to the recommendation, I feel comfortable increasing their operational support, but I'm reluctant to increase
Marketing.
the advertising budget.
okay,
There's,
so
there's also a recommendation from Julie Hollis for increasing the amount that they get for the summer citizens.
That's a different,
And,
that's a different request.
So that this is,
we'll visit that one in a moment.
right,
So-
it might balance out.
Okay, so on this discussion, Bruce didn't recommend increasing the marketing budget for the Festival Opera. However, Councilmember Ward recommended giving them an additional 50,000 on top of the 50,000 we initially recommended. Mr. Ken recommended an additional 20,000 on top of the 50,000 that we already recommended to them. Any other thoughts on this from other committee members?
I get back to what he said earlier, though, if we look next year, based on what we did this year, then in the prior years, when we looked at it, we've always given them 10, 15,000 at the most
For marketing?
for marketing, because you've also got Utah State that's marketing for the snowbirds to come up here.
Well, that's actually changed, and that's part of the reason why,
In the process of being changed, right?
well, that part has changed.
So it has changed
This
already.
year, Utah State did not go and do their visits like they have in the past. They discontinued that. And that's part of the transition process of the summer citizens being probably taken over by the Chamber of Commerce. Because the university has been re-evaluating their role in this. And they've had some staff changes and operational changes related to that. And so the university has already pulled back on that marketing and did not do those trips this year already. Those would have happened earlier this year. So that was something that the theater companies picked up and went and did on their own because they had to. They knew that had to happen still, so they went and took those trips. So I know that's part of the reason for an additional request is because they envision going forward that they won't be able to rely on other funding or personnel doing those marketing trips.
Do we know why the university chose to not?
Yes. Well, it started with a staff change. The person who used to run this retired, and then the university realized how much work it was to run this program, and I think replaced that person with 3 people trying to get everything done, realized that it was a lot of work, and that caused them to reevaluate their mission and their role and what they were trying to accomplish. And in doing that, they realized, and I think the community members who are involved realized as well, that this should be more of a collaborative endeavor with the theater companies and others in the community, businesses, shouldering more of the load and not having the university carry all of this weight for this program. Because the university originally started the Summer Citizens Program, well, because of the dam failure up in Rexburg. Because these summer citizens were originally going to Ricks College, as it was called at the time. But when the Teton Dam failed in, what was it, 1976 or something, the college campus was flooded and the summer citizens had to come somewhere else, so they came here, and they've been here ever since. And it was originally done as a way to make money off of empty student housing in the summertime, is what it's been explained to me. But it's grown into more than that. But the university does not have as much of a need for that even these days, because these days the university is able to fill their student housing in the summertime with high school students who are coming to programs like church camps and other camps. And when the university has looked at that, they've realized that that maybe should be a higher priority for them, because those are potential future college students coming to their campus, and they'd like to make that a priority for themselves. So there are a lot of factors like that that the university has been considering, and that's caused them to reevaluate their level of involvement. They still want to be part of this, they still want to host it, but they realize that it shouldn't be mostly them or as much them shouldering the load. And so some of that responsibility is shifting to groups like the Utah Festival Opera to now do some more of the marketing, and groups like the Chamber of Commerce to help with running this, which I don't think that's been announced formally or even decided formally that the Chamber will take it over. And our application this year from Summer Citizens is still from the university. But it's the plan is to announce that, I believe, during the Summer Citizen session this summer, that that transition will be made. So long story is that's part of the reason why the theater is asking for more marketing money, is because they're going to shoulder more of that load for getting the word out and getting people here.
That's futuristically, because you just said it wasn't going to be announced until the middle of the summer.
The operational side of it will start to transition this summer. The marketing side of it already transitioned starting at the end of last year, because the university already stopped that part, and the theater companies already picked it up. I believe there were a couple that went on trips this year that anticipated being part of that bigger program, but had to do it on their own.
Last year, a year ago, we allocated $30,000 to the Utah Festival for marketing. This year, we have already allocated, suggested $50,000.
Right.
So that's a 2/3 increase. I'd suggest we not increase that any more than that.
That's what I'm in favor of just keeping it, we already increased it to 50. I think we were,
You said it was 30 last year?
30 a year ago.
Okay. Any other thoughts from the committee on that one?
I'm okay with what you guys decide. Again, I'm the new guy, but I would say you gotta spend money to make money. And just looking at the stuff that they've reported last year, even just from that 407 zip code, 3,800 people, 3,800 plus, at about $24.98 a person. If that ROI is correct, that's 90,000 just in that zip code. With most of their people most of their tickets are not here. Well, there's plenty here, but 39%, about 10,000 tickets are at least outside of Cache Valley. There's very few things that bring as many people as that to Cache Valley. And to be fair, if we could control the weather and just keep it nice and cool, that's better than almost anything. If we could throw money at that, just do that. But because I think that's one of the major factors. But keeping that rolling, that snowball started is important. So I'm okay if you stay at 50, but I would suggest that if you're going to reinvest, that's one of the few places you're going to get as much reinvestment as what they do. They're very, very proactive.
Yeah, I think if we look at the purpose of restaurant tax, this request is probably the purest request in line with the exact purpose of the restaurant tax revenue. Because all of these other ones are doing stuff. How much of that is advertising and getting people to come here? Like, they're doing something fun that will hopefully attract people to come here. But This is actually going out and telling people, hey, come to Cache Valley, come to our opera, come to our shows, and come to this community and go to the restaurants and stay in the hotels and shop in the stores and all of those other types of things. I feel like this is out of all of our requests, this is the purest request for restaurant tax dollars. And I think we should at least give the extra 20,000 that Damon just recommended. And if we look at what we just did, we just handed out tens of thousands of dollars at a time to several other people, 15,000, 20,000, 10,000, 25,000, 25,000, 25,000, 20,000 in big chunks to other people. And many of those are not doing something that's going to be a direct reinvestment into sales tax generation. This one is. That's exactly what this money is going to be used for, is to get more customers to come up here and spend more money.
Well, given the background that you have just done, concerning the university versus the opera, and the university not being able to fund the summer citizens, I mean, these are all connected.
Yeah.
And I think that we could give a bit more to the opera.
And it would be nice if we had some kind of reporting system to know, I mean, this is one of the things that is long-term gonna build that nest egg, so to speak. And I would love to see those numbers year after year. If this number correlates to a bigger number to start with, you know, and where that, there's gonna be a spot where that plateaus, right? Where that's just marginal gains. But we don't know where that is. We don't even, I don't know. That might be years and years down the road.
Okay, so let's just handle this like we would normally. So I'll consider.
I'd put a motion of a $20,000 increase on the table, just to see what happens.
Okay, so we have a motion for additional $20,000. Would someone like to second that?
Yeah, I'd follow that. I would support that.
So we have a motion and a second for an additional $20,000 for the operating, or for the opera marketing request. Any other thoughts or discussion about that?
It
Okay.
would be contingent on results. Like, again, we don't want to set a precedent.
We'd expect them to bring
Scary.
There's no contingency about it.
That's what you've done.
the 20,000 is spent.
It's spent,
Yeah,
but
there's
we
no
would hope that
contingency about
next year
it.
they would
Precedents.
demonstrate
Yeah.
you know,
effective use of it.
Okay, all in favor of an extra $20,000, raise your hand.
Yes.
Okay, I see 5 votes there, so that changes to an additional 20,000 for project number 75, no, yes, 73, sorry. 73 is 20,000 extra for a total of 70,000.
Perhaps seeming out of character, given my last motion, I would move that we not fund the Utah Theater project, number 7, the additional request on number 7.
Carl's got it down to fund it, but
From Carl's
Bruce doesn't.
recommendation.
from Carl's.
So we had a request for the Utah Theater for $8,000. We initially didn't recommend anything. Carl asked that we give them at least $2,000. And I can't remember what was that request for.
That was among the lowest scoring projects that came in on the initial round, that scored a 23 out of
40.
possible, I think.
40.
And at that kind of scoring, I think there's other higher scoring projects that would have more merit.
I agree.
For additional funds than the Utah Theater.
In fact, that might be the
I
low.
propose that we just leave them the way they are.
Maybe
It
the
Way
was
they
like
are
one
now.
of the lowest.
Okay. Anybody think contrary to that? Okay, hearing no opposition to that. That brings us back to Bruce's list of recommendations. We, I think, just have the zoo left on that one. Is that right, Bruce? Okay. So the last one to talk about on Bruce's list is Zutah. And their initial request was for $480,000. What is 10%, Alma?
The 10% is $268,707.
268,000?
$268,707.
Okay, so they initially requested 480. I think they were just making sure they asked for the full 10%, I'm guessing. So they covered that. So 268,000 would be the full 10%. Carl, in his request, asked that we bring them to 10%, which he guessed that it was around 320. It's actually 268. And Bruce has recommended that we increase them from 160 to 175, an additional 15,000.
I'll second that motion.
For an additional 15,000.
15,000, that's it though.
Okay,
Sounds good to me.
I won't support anymore.
I second it.
okay.
Just as a reminder that 2020, they had a $61,000 surplus that year, and in 2021, they had a $255,000 surplus from that
A little sad.
carryover, or not carryover, that they actually generated, 255 more than they spent.
Is that money they're putting into their capital fund for future expansions, or did they say?
Didn't indicate, they just had $250,000.
They kept wanting to buy that truck too, remember?
That was a year ago. that they bought the truck.
Okay, so I heard a motion, a second, to give them an additional $15,000. Any thoughts otherwise? Any opposition to that? Okay, hearing none, that will be our recommendation for number 79, Zutah, an additional 15,000, bringing them to a total of 175,000 being recommended to the county council. And let's go now, having finished Bruce's, which thank you, Bruce, for all of those recommendations. That's helped us spend a bit more. How much have we spent now, Alma?
Okay,
Or how much left?
how much is left?
Yeah. So we had a little over, just over $1 million left, and now how much do we have?
So right here, we have 777,986.
So we spent almost a quarter of it right there. Let's go through the rest of Carl's list, and then we'll get to these various emails that we got. So on Carl's list, the first one is American West Heritage Center, and
Took care of that one.
we already took care of that one. And then Cache Valley Ballet we already talked about. The next one was the roping arena lights.
The what?
Fairgrounds
Number
roping
17.
arena lights, number 17. Their initial request was for $103,095. We did not initially recommend funding of that. Carl thinks we should give them 100 grand. We did give the fairgrounds lots of money for other projects. This one was
This is one of their
lower on
lowest
their
strength.
priority
This
list.
is one of their lowest strength
This
too.
is their lowest. In fact, we ran short on number 3. We
Yeah,
allocated X amount. And we
that's
ran
right,
short.
yeah.
I say we circle that one and we come back to it as we need to.
Yeah,
Okay.
And is it worth doing, topping off 16 before you hit 17?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think this committee carefully considered the various applications and the priority on that one. And Carl did say that he realized that we had made some of those considerations and that he wasn't aware of them. So let's skip that one for now. And that takes us to the next one on Carl's list, Gran Fondo. They asked for 4,000. We recommended 2,500. He thinks we should give them 3,500. Any thoughts on that? An extra $1,000 for that one.
What number is that?
That's number 38, Cash Gran
I
Fondo.
think it's a nominal one, and this actually potentially could bring some people in
Yeah.
from out of town. You'll be
bang
at
for the
least Salt
buck
Lake.
on
The
this,
3,500,
Yeah, I support that. The bang for the buck on this is substantial.
that'll be good.
Okay,
I'm in
so
favor of that.
anybody against another 1,000 for Gran Fondo?
That's okay.
Okay, hearing no opposition, that will be our recommendation, that we recommend a total of 3,500 for their $4,000 request on project number 3.
We already fully funded the other request of theirs.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that brings us to the next one on Carl's list, number 40, Jump the Moon Foundation. They asked for 24,600, and we initially recommended 15,000 for them, and Carl asked if we'd give them another 3,000.
I'm agreeable to that. I think this is a good foundation. They do a lot of good.
They do a lot of good and they work hard at it.
Yeah, they do.
They do a lot with a little, don't they?
Lot of what?
It feels like everything they give them, they do a lot with it.
Yes, they
Yeah.
do.
Now, this is only 16% of their proposed budget too. It's not very much of what they're totally, their pie in the sky is.
Tells you there's a
They're
lot of,
located, they're newly located over here in the old Napa Auto Parts building, aren't they? Isn't that where
Yes.
they're at?
They have
Yeah.
moved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good
Okay.
location.
So Carl recommended an extra $3,000 on top of the 15 we already recommended, which would make the recommendation 18,000. Any opposition to that? Okay, hearing
I'd
hearing
even
none,
add that
that'll
up
be
to
our
5,000.
recommendation, $18,000 on project number 40. Project number 43 is the next one, Logan Community Foundation. And
That's the theater.
yeah,
which one?
yeah, that's 43.
That's the theater. We've already considered that one, number 43.
Cash
Oh, that's
Regional
Cash
Theater.
Regional Theater, yeah, we already talked
Yeah, we've
about that.
already Done more
Okay.
than what Carl asked
We did a
for.
lot more than what Carl asked for, okay. And then the rest of these on Carl's list, we've already talked about. Top of Utah, Music Theater West, did we do Unicorn Theater? Yeah, we did Unicorn Theater, Festival Opera, Utah Theater, and Zutah. So, we're making pretty good time. We are an hour into our meeting and gotten through both of those
Be
lists.
done by now, let's
Excellent.
go.
Does that mean we don't get lunch?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, we're gonna be done. So let's go through all these emails. The top email I have on my stack that Alma just gave us is about the suicide concert, suicide prevention concert. We got an email from Bart. I'm just gonna read this. After watching the RAPS committee, good morning. After watching the RAPS committee meeting and the lengthy discussion about funding for the suicide awareness event, I wanted to write to share my feelings about the event. As you know, this event idea was hatched 2 years ago by Margaret Gittens, one of the office specialists at the fairgrounds, as a way to bring the community together to spread the message for an important cause. The first year held, this event attracted an estimated 3,000 attendees, with about the same amount the second year. While this event is billed as a concert, it is much more than that. There has been a thank you reception for first responders and resource booths sponsored by local mental health providers. Suicide prevention is something that is very meaningful to me, having lost a son to suicide. Just in the past couple of weeks, I have also lost a staff member at the fairgrounds to suicide. Knowing the resources available are important and have been important to the staff here at the fairgrounds. There was also very recently another employee of the county that lost a child to suicide. I want to thank you for the 15,000 already committed, but would like to consider funding, like you to consider funding the remaining $10,000 for this important cause. So he's asking for an additional 10,000 on top of the 15,000 that we just gave. Thoughts from the committee on this one?
Let's see, this one's under the United Way this
Yeah.
time, is that right?
Yeah, so what happened is the last couple of years, the fairgrounds actually managed it, so it was a county project and was actually supported by restaurant tax dollars the last couple of years. But in an effort to move it to a nonprofit, the United Way stepped up and is willing to basically run this through their books and help with leading the event. The executive director of the United Way, Jeremy Berman, happens to also be serving this year as the chairman of the Cash Suicide Prevention Coalition. And that was one of the thoughts as far as, well, over the last couple of years, was that rather than this being something that the fairgrounds puts on, that we make it something that's led by community groups, including the Suicide Prevention Coalition and the United Way. And there are actually a number of other nonprofit organizations who are partnering on this project. And it, over the last 2 years, had Alex Boyer was the headliner, which brought people in from all over. As I mentioned last time, there wasn't any way, because it was a free concert, there wasn't any way to track where people came from, how many out-of-towners came to it. But with the thousands of people there, it was estimated that there were people coming from out of the area. So he's asking for an additional $10,000 for the concert, which is I don't know what percentage that will be of the total cost, but I think they've spent around $50,000 on the concert the last couple of years. Thoughts from the committee on this?
I just had the thought, you've talked about Alex Boyer coming. I'm wondering if there was somebody that would be willing to, did Alex Boyer donate the first year, his
No,
performance?
he charged for both years, and the committee is looking at having somebody else who is a big name, who will, I think, be cheaper.
That, I think if, I am agreeable to this extra 10 because I think it's something that needs to be out there, but I think we need to make sure that they're looking at different options and not spending so much on an entertainer, because that's not what this is all about.
Yeah.
It's about getting the information out to the people.
Yeah, I know they are doing that. In fact, they had a meeting this morning where they talked about that, and I believe that is the plan, to get somebody who's more affordable. However, we'll hopefully still have the same draw of bringing people in.
That's the trade-off, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is a tough thing, because you get a big name, you'll get a lot of people coming, but that's a little bit more expensive, which with this, we're not selling tickets, so.
Yeah.
So it is definitely a trade-off. Okay, so we have a recommendation from Barbara to fund the additional $10,000. I'll second that. Thank you, Barbara. I think this is an important project for our community, and hopefully we have people from.
Describe to me how this fits within the restaurant and RAPZ.
It's a concert, it's entertainment, and it has an overall educational goal, but it's entertainment, and people are coming to do this. There are food trucks at the event, people come, go to restaurants beforehand or get food there at the concert.
I'm saying it's a good cause, it really is, but I worry about how many,
I think these are gonna be coming now
careful
in
with the
a,
cause.
they're just gonna be, we're gonna get bombarded by everyone in their cause and wanting money to put on the benefit
for their cause when we start financing a lot of these things, rather than
letting the community rally together on them specifically.
it causes me to worry.
I think that's a good point, David.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but isn't that one of the reasons that they had a big name come?
That's why, because you get a lot of people, like, that's
Exactly,
why.
and it probably is not just within the
But
valley.
we were told that he was donating his time.
Yeah, that's what I thought was,
That first one, then all of a sudden we came back and they said, oh, now he's not donating his time, and so the county had to fork up a bunch of money.
Yeah,
We were not,
yeah.
that was wrong. But,
Yeah, I don't know who said he was donating, but I don't know of anybody who ever heard that or said that, but I never heard anything about him donating.
even, I guess that's what the purpose here, I just worry about, there's gonna be several other groups, and they're all good causes, but when they're community fed and they're put on just by the community or some people themselves, I think they'll gain better traction than just looking at being financed
I think,
by, taxes.
yeah, I'm uncomfortable recommending any more, and I recommend that we leave it to the county council to make that decision.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for an additional $10,000 for this concert. Any other thoughts on that? Okay, all in favor of the extra $10,000?
Sorry, before you go into
Yeah.
that, I mean, this is a lot to wrap your head around. I would go on record saying, going forward, I'm in very large support of putting on a big concert and bringing in a name and bringing people into the valley. The more people that come in from out of town that support this, the more that helps perpetuate things like parks and stuff everywhere else. So I'm a big fan of that. I'd also go on record to say that it can't be about a personal agenda. And then I would probably go through with your vote. If
Okay.
Nobody else has.
Not to talk it to death. This one's really tough for me because I'm very, very passionate about the nature, the subject of this event is hugely important. In my work at USU, we see suicide touching our student body. We have seen it in our high schools. It's just a tremendously important issue. And yet I am also struggling, like, if this had never happened and someone said, how can RAPS help this happen? I would have said, well, put in a request for a stage or an upgrade to a park so that we can do everything we can do so that we can help make this event happen by funding the infrastructure and the setup for it, but not necessarily being the entity that's funding it. And yet I'm up against precedent that it has been funded in the past. I would love, and I think the United Way taking this on instead of the county is actually a step in a positive direction. And I would love to see an application next year that says, hey, we'll fund a stage so that we can help support not only this event, but other events. We will help support lights and all of the things that would be necessary, such that hopefully a little bit of fundraising through a nonprofit can cover the other costs that are besides infrastructure. That would be my preference, to see the way that's handled. And yet we have this application in front of us right now. I felt really strongly about making sure that the event could happen by supporting to the extent that we did, because otherwise I think it would fail. And I don't think we'd be able to have this event that I think is really important. I struggle a little bit with pushing, with doing more. I wouldn't be angry if that's was the outcome. I would be angry if the event just died. I would be disappointed. And so I'm struggling a little bit for fear that it might not work out. But because of the significance of the topic to me, I felt the need to kind of explain. I don't think I'm going to support the extra funding. I do support the funding level where it's at, and I hope that in future applications, if I'm even on this committee ever again in the future, that we could find out ways that we can support this event and perhaps others like it for good causes through the infrastructure that's necessary to make them happen, but perhaps not picking and choosing from among different applications for different concerts with different performers.
Okay, with that said, let's call for a vote. All in favor of Barbara's motion to add an additional $10,000, raise your hand. Let's see, that's all in.
I think that's 5. Is that a hand up?
Is that a hand up?
Yep, I'll go for that.
Okay, so that's 5.
Strictly because of and this is my conversation when we had our first meeting. I agree with what you were saying, Dave, but it's just simply the subject that I think is so critical.
Okay.
For suicide prevention.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. So our recommendation on that item will be an additional $10,000 for a total of $25,000.
So what is United Way gonna do?
They're helping to coordinate.
Because the cost of their things was 25.
What's that?
So is United Way gonna do anything, or now they got their money, or, like?
That funds the entire thing.
That funds the concert, not the United Way. They're just the,
Facilitator.
they're the facilitator, and that's what the United Way does. They don't usually provide direct services. They usually raise money for other causes and other nonprofits.
It looks like they have another 18 to raise.
They'll have some admin costs at a minimum in the game as well.
Yeah.
As
I don't think the intent is for the United Way to make any money off of this or to keep it. I think all of these funds will be going to the concert. Okay, so let's go to the document excerpts from emails for additional requests that Alma put together, and it's number 1 through 6 on the front and then number 7 on the back. I'm just going to do number 7 first because I think this is really fast. Herm Olson, who's the director of the board for or the chairman of the board for the American Festival Chorus and Orchestra, asked if they could have an additional $17,500 beyond what they initially asked for in their application. I just emailed them right back in that email and said, I don't think we can do that. because he didn't meet the
March 3rd.
timing, all that, so.
Otherwise, you open it all up again, here we go again, and that's not right.
I told him, I don't think that's possible because of the timeframes. He emailed me back and said, yeah, I understand. So I think that one's really quick. We can just cross it off and say, no, you can't submit a new application after the deadline. So then going back to number 1 and number 2, we've already covered those two. So we can cross those out. And then number 3 is the email from Celeste, which Celeste is here. If anybody has any questions, but we already addressed all 3 of these, and we gave them each 5,000 more, right? So those have been covered. And then next on here, emails number 4 and 5 were from Julie Hollis Terrell with the Business Bureau and Jamie Andrus with the Cash Chamber regarding the Summer Citizens Program. And I'm sorry, I don't have that one right in front of me. What was their initial request? Was 30?
Utah State University.
Yeah,
Not Cash Chamber.
Yeah, so as I mentioned a little bit ago, this program has, for the last almost 50 years, been
Number
run
76.
by Utah State University and is in the process of being transitioned to be led. The Utah State University will still be involved, but will be led by the chamber.
So they submitted the request, but the money will go to the chamber?
No, it will go to Utah State University and because they are running the program this year. This will be the last year that Utah State University will run the program. And then going forward, they will still be involved. They will still be a major partner, but the Chamber of Commerce will be the lead organization leading this project. So project number 76, Utah State University asked for $30,000 this year, and we initially recommended $15,000 for them. And Julie and Jamie have asked that we provide the additional money. So this, just like the opera and many of these organizations, the Summer Citizens were hit pretty hard by the pandemic, especially because their demographic are senior citizens. The Summer Citizens are senior citizens, and they were especially wary of coming out. The university actually canceled things during the pandemic, so they weren't able to operate. They have lost attendance and are rebuilding that. I don't think they're quite back to the attendance they were at before, and so that's part of what they're asking for. What were our previous year's numbers? I don't.
I move that we keep it at 15,000 and that the reserve that we have, that if we have to pull some out from the county council may pull some out and give to the cash chamber or something later, if they're going to ramp it up, we can hold that money for them later. But I think we're pretty consistent in giving Utah State the 15.
Haven't we,
It's actually a little more. The last award was 10,000 in 2019. Doesn't say what they got in 2020, but they didn't end up spending it because
If they're phasing out, then let's just get the money where it needs to be.
but is this 30 then to reimburse the university for money they already spent this last spring?
It doesn't say that in
It didn't
the-
say that.
Oh, yeah, it's a good
No,
question, but I don't think so.
I don't think those would be eligible
They have
expenses
2
under
years
the-
to spend it, that's just it.
But I like Dave's recommendation simply because I think this is a great chance I very much support the 15,000, but I think this is a great chance to reimagine the program, what the outreach and all the other stuff looks like.
Maybe not even
But
give
help
them
me
the 15.
understand, I'm ready to take based on a discussion, to take back the recommendation for 15,000.
Yeah, I was too, I got a big
Why?
why here for them.
Why?
Because
we just
it's already
reallocated
spent.
all, yeah, this is to attract, like, that's what we just spent all that money on it.
I'd recommend moving this
That's
then
what we
over to the
spent.
chamber or something, or holding that in reserve to give to the chamber when they make a request so they can spend that next winter, spring.
For their start.
Can we do that if the chamber didn't apply?
No, well,
No,
Hold
you-
it to the county,
we can let the
wait
council.
for a future request.
So what, I don't understand. Why are you saying don't give them any money?
Well, if they're phasing out,
They're not phasing out. All they're doing is they're still gonna be part of it, they're just not gonna be the leader of it. They're not gonna be the one who the money runs through, but they're still gonna be a huge part of it. They will still host programs at the university, they will still host the summer citizens in their housing at the university. They will still have classes and tours and things like that they host for the summer citizens. They're still going to be a major player in this. They just won't be the leader carrying most of the responsibility starting next year. This year, they're doing all of the things they have done in the past. They're continuing to run the program as they have in the past. This year, next year is when they're changing. So they're asking for money to run their program for this year, and they do bring in hundreds of senior citizens. Maybe we'll have 800 this year. This is a huge impact on our economy. I can't remember what the number was on this one. How many millions in economic impact from having the summer citizens. The university, I think, has been extremely gracious for these many years in running this and doing this when really they probably were outside of their scope and their mission. In how much economic activity they were stimulating in our community. I think they went far above and beyond their own needs and own wants in what they've done.
But I'm going back to the conversation and the explanation you gave before that says that they were drawing back because they could make better use of their facilities by inviting other groups in rather than the university, and they're not, or rather than focusing on the senior citizens.
Yeah, so they don't see it as critical of a need as they did maybe 50 years ago. But that doesn't mean they're not going to do it anymore. They're still doing it. They're still providing that housing. They're just, what they've done is they've reevaluated how much involvement they should have in it and how high of a priority it should be for them when they have so many other priorities that they are dealing with as a university. So they're still doing this. They're still housing the seniors. They're still attracting them here. They're still marketing. They're still getting people to come here and stay here and eat in restaurants here and get medical and dental care here and buy cars here and go to the shows here and do all of those things. They're still part of that. There's just a transition happening in how exactly it will be administered. But this year, they're still administering it. And that's what they're asking for, is money for this year to administer it.
And we gave them 3,000, we were 3,000 above their, that was allotted last year's, which we increased it to 15,000. And I say we stick to that. And that's, so, again, that was a motion.
Okay.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second for 15,000 for, well, to stay at the 15,000 that we initially recommended. Does anybody have any thoughts
I
otherwise?
just have a thought that I would be much more comfortable if during this transitional period, this had been a request from both the Chamber of Commerce as well as the university.
Yeah, and part of the reason for these late emails from the Visitors Bureau and the Chamber is because this is a work in progress. Over the last couple of months is when everybody's been meeting and trying to figure out what needed to be done, because I think initially some people were concerned that it might even go away, and everybody, because the university was thinking about how they were going to handle this. And so this is all in flux still right now, but I absolutely agree with you. So we have a motion and a second to stick with our existing recommendation of $15,000. Any other thoughts on it, for or against that? Okay, anybody have a problem with that, with sticking where we are? Okay, seeing no opposition, we'll stick with that recommendation.
Okay.
So that brings us down to number 6. This is, I think, the easiest one. Wasn't this $2,500? And this affects every elementary school in the valley. This is an incredible program, Mountain West Springs Academy. I apologize, I missed the discussion when you guys talked about this in the meeting, but I think we didn't initially recommend anything to them.
What number is that?
This is number
51.
51, Mountain West Strings Academy. They asked for $2,500. And this is a program that's in every elementary school in the valley. It's a nonprofit. It's not run by the school district. They do use classroom space and do before and after school orchestra for the children. It's an incredible program because it is subsidized by their other fundraising they do, and it's very cheap for the kids to be able to participate, to rent an instrument, and to get involved in orchestra. If you read the article about the retirement of our Cache County Superintendent, Steve Norton, he mentioned in that article that his greatest accomplishment, he felt like, was the establishment of this organization several years ago in our county.
This is related to another request. What's the number of the other request that it's related to?
Well, I think they might have been close, but I don't think they were,
We talked about them
we talked
jointly.
about them in sequence, but I don't think they were related.
Are you confusing this?
Cache Youth Orchestra number 31.
Yeah, 31,
Just look at that one.
How are those related?
31 and 51 are two separate requests.
They're prepared by the same person.
Yeah.
I think, I can't remember, they're
Yes.
prepared by the same person.
That's true. Glenn Cook is the contact person for both organizations.
What's that last name stuck out in your head?
Don't.
So I would recommend that we give them the $2,500. It's one of our smallest requests that we got, and it has one of the biggest impacts, impacting every elementary school across our county in both the Logan and the Cache school districts.
I would like to add a little comment that the schools need all the help with the arts that they can possibly get, I think. And this is supplementary, and I feel it's a very positive thing.
Yeah, and
That's the least we can do.
Yeah, and this is a separate nonprofit that has stepped in and said to the schools, we'll do this for you. They're saving millions of dollars, really, because if the schools each had to run a program like this, they'd be paying teachers who are benefited and buying instruments and all that kind of thing. This is a great organization. I happen to be aware of it because all 7 of my kids went through it. I think it's a good program. So I would recommend that we give them $2,500. Very small request and a very big impact.
I'll second that because I agree that I think
The importuning.
children need more than just sports
Yay.
to get them, because not everybody is. So yeah, I'll agree with that, I'll second that.
Good point. Okay, any other thoughts on $2,500 for Mountain West Strings Academy?
I support it. My hesitation was I didn't see the separation from the school district clearly.
Yeah.
If that's, given that that's made clear, and I see it as an association with the Cache Youth Orchestra more than with the school district, to that end, I would support the 2,500.
That was part of the discussion, is that we're starting to finance school operations. And I don't think that's, I do not think we should even think about that with this.
Yeah, this is an after-school program, before-school program, so good points. Okay, any other thoughts on that? Any opposition to 2,500 for them? Okay, so we'll make that our recommendation, 2,500 for them. With that being said, are there any other emails or requests or any other,
I have one. Stokes Nature Center scored pretty well, and we didn't quite fully fund their proposal.
What number is that?
67,
67?
and it did score in the 30s.
They asked for 30,000. I think we awarded 25. I'm
That
not.
was still pretty strong from other years.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm not adamant about it. But just thought I'd raise the question.
But we even increased it.
I wouldn't hesitate to increase to 30, but, and then I would like to come back. I know I said something flippant, I think, about the roping arena lighting in our last meeting, and we kind of circled that earlier, and it might be worth coming back for a conversation.
so let's finish the conversation about Stokes. To say the number again, project number?
67.
67. And,
They requested 30 and we gave them 25. Recommended 25.
okay, initial request 30,000, initial recommendation 25, and Damon's recommendation is?
I would give them the remaining 5,000.
The remaining
based on
5,000.
where we're at, but.
Okay. Any other thoughts about an extra 5,000 for Stokes Nature Center? Any opposition to an extra 5,000 for Stokes Nature Center? Okay, seeing no opposition, that'll be our recommendation then, the full $30,000 for project number 67. Alma, where are we standing? How much more money do we have in the bank?
Let's look at that right now. So we still have 756,486.
Great.
Good number.
So we just spent $250,000, basically, or recommended another $250,000. We still have $750,000 left. With that being said, I know you just mentioned Fairgrounds Roping Arena project. Let's talk about that, but does anybody have any other projects that they'd like us to revisit?
Sorry, I'm gonna spend the whole wad here if you guys let me, but Newton and Cornish didn't email us, but I don't think that should necessarily hold them back. But their projects scored reasonably well. It didn't get full funding, but got some good funding for both pickleball courts and playground equipment in Newton. I remember someone made the argument in Newton that we ought to think about the kids on getting some playground equipment funding in there as well, in addition to just the pickleball. And then Cornish, similarly, we funded $50,000 of an $80,000 request. And those are smaller communities, but they have fewer resources at their disposal to support some of these things. I do like the communities to have some skin in the game, but would it be worth it to revisit those in the way that we did for some other cities and towns previously in the
The
discussion?
50,000 we allocated to Cornish is equivalent to $182
Person.
Per capita?
Yeah.
and the other communities is in the neighborhood of $15 to $20 per capita. So I think these are very generous.
Yeah,
I
and that
agree
was
with where you're going.
That was
See what they can
a
do.
safety project too, is why we even boosted that up.
And it gets used for, that part gets used for bike
Bike,
events
yeah.
and a lot of
Little
things
Red-
that
Little
that
Red,
touch
right, what is it?
countywide.
Little Red or something, whatever.
I think Little Red's out there. There's a few of them that I know.
I think those are really good points, Damon, because with these smaller towns, this big of a difference in funding between what we're giving them and what they need could be enough to kill the project. It's oftentimes hard for these smaller towns with their very small budgets to be able to raise funds.
Even another 10,000, say, to Cornish, and another, another chunk to Newton.
It's about a $30,000 difference, and I was gonna say put another 15 on Cornish. And then I thought we'd finish I had that same thing with Newton, possibly funding the playground equipment.
Just fully funding it,
Yeah, or the
Because you're only
pickleball.
flying far off, right?
Yeah,
13,700. Okay, is that a motion, council member?
yes.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
So we've got a motion to fully fund the Newton project and add an additional 15,000 to the Cornish project.
Now, there's two Newton projects.
Oh, yeah,
One was the pickleball and one was the playground.
okay,
You
so,
wanna talk about the playground,
And I'm
Dave?
thinking more on the playground.
oh,
Okay,
okay.
I'm agreeable to that.
Okay, so your motion is on project 54 to fully fund that. That's only an additional $7,260.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Take one
Damon,
at a
were you talking about pickleball courts?
I lean a little towards the playground equipment in some ways, but I also want to be mindful of the fact that Newton Town put the pickleball courts as their first priority and the playground as the second. My hope would be that we could help. I don't know how to best help such that both projects could be done. But I assume we have to put money behind a specific request rather than just saying, Newton, here's an extra 10,000, where do you want it?
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with fully funding the pickleball courts too. We're only talking another $13,000. That can make a big difference for that town, and that's actually really cheap, that they're gonna get that done, with only a small request from us, $48,000 to do that. Those things can be very expensive, and if they figured out a way to do it and get it done with only asking us for $48,000, I think they either figured out other money, or they figured out volunteers or some other way to get it done.
What if we put an extra 5 behind the playground and an extra 10 behind the pickleball? That gets both of them really, really close to where I'm confident they could figure out how to close the gap.
And they can even still use one for the other, once they get the money.
I'll go with that too. If you'd like to.
And
You want
I
to switch
think-
those, that's fine.
It requires, I think if I remember, it requires an act of the county council to be able to transfer funds from one project to another. But that's something that they could come and seek if they needed to do that.
Okay,
So putting 10,000 on, from 35 to 45K on 53.
Close on that.
And go to 12,260 on the 54.
I was thinking go to 15.
15, okay,
15.
And that leaves them with 2,260.
okay, that's good.
But I'm open to.
No, I'll go with that.
okay, did you get those, Alma?
Okay, so start at the
Could you repeat
beginning
the
on,
amounts for each one, please?
We go to 45,000 on number 53.
What did you-
so 53, an additional what amount?
10,000.
10,000 to bring it to
10,000 on
45,000.
53.
And on 54, an additional 5,000 to bring it to 15,000.
Okay,
Okay, and Barbara, you originally seconded that, are you okay with seconding this again? Okay.
and then,
Any opposition to that? Okay, that'll be our recommendation.
and then
for next. And
33,
then we were also, yeah, then we were also talking about Cornish. They initially asked for 80, we initially recommended 50, and there was a recommendation to give them an additional
10,000.
15.
15,000.
Yeah.
1,000 to bring that to 65,000 total.
I think that
That
gets us-
scored really high, and that's not very much of their budget either. It's a big project.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce. Okay, so the recommendation is an additional 15,000 on the Cornish parking enhancement project. Any opposition to that? Seeing none, that'll be our recommendation there.
that was
Okay.
33, an additional 15,000, correct?
Yes, on number 33, in
Number
addition,
33, an additional 15,000.
1,000, okay.
Yes, to a total of 65,000. Okay, with that being said, are there any other projects in this list that any committee members think we should revisit? Damon, you said you wanted to talk about roping arena.
The roping arena lighting. I'm not the one that's gonna get the phone calls complaining from neighbors about lights showing up out there. I'm interested in the county council's thoughts on that, but do the funds just roll over to next year if we don't spend them this year?
Yeah. We'll reallocate, we'll have to reallocate them in the budget.
My hunch is we're gonna end up getting this project request from the fairgrounds next year anyways. And if we've got the resources, and next year, the project will probably cost $20,000 more than it cost this year. And so
If you build it, they will come. And that's what's happened down there on everything we've done down there.
I agree. Yeah. Especially the Cache County Fair is a big, big draw. And the more improvement we can have down there, I think I agree with David, the more people you're gonna have attend on that.
Okay, so what we already recommended on Cache County Fairgrounds was project number 11, the Fair and Rodeo Enhancement, 85,000. We recommended number 12, Cheese and Dairy Festival, 25,000. We recommended number 13, replace portable bleachers, 16,000. Number 14, rodeo arena lighting upgrade. What's that?
Yeah, we fully funded that one. Fully funded.
The rodeo arena lighting upgrade, 151,000.
Yeah. We didn't.
Number 15, we fully funded concrete floors and livestock barns, just under 100,000. Number 16, we fully funded 54,000 for east parking area lighting. And then number 17 was the last one. Was there one that we partially funded?
Well, I think at one point, we were talking about taking that 21,156 that was left over from and dumping that in there, but I don't think we ever officially did that into number 17.
Okay, so that would have been 17 that we had partially funded.
I don't think we have ever officially partially funded that.
Okay.
Yeah, at least not in my record,
Yeah.
but I wasn't,
According to our recommendation, we didn't recommend any funding for that one.
but that's what would have been left over, and I think we might have left that as a placeholder and just not revisited that.
Okay, so with that being said, the request for $103,095, Damon, is your recommendation that we just fund that fully?
Yes.
Okay, so the recommendation, got a recommendation and a second to fully fund project number 17, Cache County Fairgrounds, Roping Arena Light Upgrade. Any thoughts about that? Any opposition to that?
And now this is just for the parking lots, lights, or no? Is that,
Roping Arena,
It's the.
this is the
it's-
roping
it's
arena,
the second-
sorry, 16 was the parking
second
arena.
Fully fund.
okay, 16 was East Parking Area Lights. Okay, so seeing no opposition, that will be our recommendation, $103,095 for number 7. Okay, with that being said, are there any other projects the committee would like to revisit before we send our final recommendation to the Cache County Council?
This leaves the county council with
Yeah, left.
still some significant
Yeah.
remainder. I think Bruce's point about having some carryover in the event that the airport's proposal is better formed next year is very wise. I like where we're at.
Okay, and what's our final leftover number?
So the final leftover number is 623,391. If I've got everything entered, can we take just a minute and go through them to make sure that I've,
That's a good idea. That's a really good idea. That way we don't have to reconvene.
number one. So let me just go in my order. I'm sorry, I apologize, it won't be in your order. I'm just gonna go down through this. What I did is I took the amount and then added an additional amount. So let me go through and find those. Just give me 1 second here as I scroll down through. So on number 38, this is the Cache Century Ride. We did an additional 1,000,
Correct,
so that's 3,500 total for number 38.
correct.
And on number 45, the Logan Downtown Alliance did an additional 5,000 for a total of 15,000.
Correct.
And on number 54, Newton Town did an additional 5,000 for a total of $15,000 recommendation.
What project number was that one?
Number 54, Newton Town.
Playground equipment?
That's correct.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Number 66, this is Smithfield Historical Society, an additional 20,000
It's a different category.
for a total of 50,000 to number 66.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Number 71, the United Way of Cache Valley did an additional 10,000 for a total of 25,000.
Correct.
Okay. Utah Festival, number 73, an additional 20,000 for a total of 70,000.
Correct.
Okay, go over to this other column. Number 3, American Festival West Heritage Center did an additional 15,000 for a total of 105,000.
Correct.
Number 8, Cache Civic Ballet did an additional 5,500 for a total of 12,500.
Correct.
The Cache Fairgrounds, the number 17, the roping arena, fully funded at $103,095.
Correct.
Okay. Number 24, Cache Valley Center for the Arts, did an additional 20,000 for a total of $120,000.
Correct.
Number 25 did an additional $10,000 for a total of $50,000.
Correct.
Number 34, this is Four Seasons Theater Company, did an additional $5,000 for a total of $25,000.
Correct.
Jump the Moon, number 40, did an additional $3,000 for a total of $18,000 recommendation.
Correct.
Logan Community Foundation, number 43, did an additional $5,000 for a total of $30,000.
Correct.
Then number 51, the Mountain West String Academy, gave them $2,500.
Correct.
Number 52, Music Theater West, an additional $5,000 for a total of $35,000.
Correct.
Number 67, the Stokes Nature Center, an additional $5,000 for $30,000 total.
Correct.
Number 70, the Unicorn Theater, an additional $2,500 for $10,000 total.
Correct.
Number 72, Utah Festival Opera and Musical Theater, an additional $50,000 for a total of $450,000.
Correct.
Okay, one last column, and then the zoo. Cornish, number 33, gave a recommendation of $15,000 additional for a total of $65,000.
Correct.
Number 39 to Hiram, an additional $25,000 for a total of $200,000.
Correct.
And number 50, Millville City, recommend $23,144.
Correct.
And then 53, Newton Town, an additional $10,000 for a total of $45,000.
Correct.
Number 58, Paradise, is an additional $9,000 for a total of $59,000.
Correct.
59, Providence is an additional $50,000 for an additional $50,000 for a total of $200,000 to Providence.
Correct.
And then 64, Smithfield, an additional $25,000 for a total of $200,000.
Correct.
Okay, and then the zoo to number 79, Zootah, gave an additional $15,000 for a total of $175,000.
Correct.
Did I miss anything? And I'll send this out.
I think I checked everything off on my notes, just double check.
So that leaves just a little over 600,000.
Okay, I don't see anything else. Do any committee members see anything else or have anything else they think we should consider?
No.
Okay, once again, thank you so much for all of the work and effort and time and advice. We will send this recommendation to the county council for their meeting next Tuesday, and we'll be adjourned. Thank you.
I'm sorry?